Hi guys, I'm Laura. I'm the one you've been watching the whole time. We have reached 500 subs recently and that totally blew my mind. Thank you all very much for that. I appreciate every single one of you for all of your support, the nice comments. I love creating speed paints, etc. To celebrate this occasion, I started a Q&A session. So on my social media posts, I asked you if you have questions for me and what type of questions you want me to answer. And you guys had some stuff for me. And today we're going to get into that. So guys, I'm looking forward to this video. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, to like, etc. It helps me a lot and it shows me that you care. Okay, so a good question to start out, I think, would be, how did you get into art? Do you do traditional art as well? And congrats. Yes, thank you for the congrats, first of all. And how did I get into art? Well, I think it started around 5th grade. I think I was like 12 years old, and that's when all of a sudden on my YouTube page I had drawing tutorial videos on my page. So it was like learn how to draw a mouth, learn how to draw eyes, learn how to draw a rose. So it was really random stuff and was really just short tutorials just with some regular HB pencil. And I was curious, so I just grabbed some random college block paper, nothing special at all. And I was just sitting there with really bad lighting and everything, and I was like, let me try this. It doesn't sound that hard, does it? I was trying to follow along the tutorials. I think most of you probably also started this way, so let me know in the comments if it was the same for you or how you got into art. And yeah, so I made those tutorials, and I mean, of course it wasn't Da Vinci paintings at first, but it was okay. So I had fun. I was like, whoa, maybe I can do this. Let me learn more. Because I was like, oh, I see improvement. I understand the tutorial. So that's fun. Let me keep going. And my YouTube algorithm was spitting out more and more of these videos. Maybe like YouTube showed my videos to you. So yeah, I do traditional art as well. That's actually how I started out, everything just normally with pencil and paper. And I actually got into art a lot because of anime too, because it was around that time when friends showed me anime. So I started watching some and I got really into it. At the same time, when I started like with those how to draw a rose blah 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 videos, I also got recommended by YouTube how to draw manga videos. And those were like how to draw a face, how to draw manga eyes, how to draw... Yeah, it was a lot of how to draw manga eyes. Oh my god, I was doing crazy eyes. That's how I got further into it. And so now I started actually painting people. It started all with the heads and the faces, and they were really cartoonish, really manga, anime-like. In my mind, I would be like, okay, I want to do them in this and that pose. And that's when I started to see how bad I was, because like, okay, I got the face now, I got the gist. But then I continued with the body. It would look so ridiculous because the head was huge, the eyes were huge. Imagine if this was the head, the whole body was maybe like this, and I had no clue about anatomy. That's when I noticed, okay, at first I thought I was doing well and I was learning pretty fast, but now I got at a point where I gotta research. Now I gotta learn. That's when I got into anatomy videos and how to draw poses, learn about proportions. Then I went down this rabbit hole. I actually sat there and learned to draw hands, learned to draw feet and whatever, because what was fun for me was bringing the visions I had in my head to life, basically on paper. To do that, at some point, I would have to learn more and get better. And that was the frustrating part at some points, definitely. I even bought some how to draw manga books. I don't know if you know them. Do you know these? They actually helped me a lot. I learned about the contrapposto there, for example. If you don't know what the contrapposto is and you want to learn more, check out my video about how to draw dynamic poses up here. I learned a lot in those books. I had one about like surfaces and materials, how to paint metal, water, like the elements, wood, that kind of stuff, texture for clothes. Then I had like poses, how to do anatomy, stuff like that. That's actually how I got into art. I remember when I started, I would like proudly go to my parents, look what I drew, and then they're like, oh my god, you're so good, and that motivated me. To everyone watching, how did you get into art? I really want to know. Maybe it's the same way like for me, anime or just simply YouTube tutorials, whatever. Let me know. Oh, and there's also Bob Ross, right? So I also saw the Bob Ross videos back then. I wouldn't say it's how I got into art, but that definitely was an influence. So to the second question in that comment, whether I also do traditional art, yes, definitely. That's also how I started, and I still do some traditional art. I started with simply HB pencil and paper. Then I also tried some colored pencils, I also used Copic. I'm looking over there because my pens are over there, but you can't see it. I used Copic pens, Delta pens, so those are alcohol-based markers. I also used watercolor and like different kinds of pens, like, you know, those metallic pens by Edding. Oh yeah, I also used ink at some point, but mainly because school made me. I did try around a lot with traditional medium. I also did use charcoal at some point. I also painted canvases, like the one you can see here in the background that I painted with acrylic colors. My boyfriend recently got me some oil paint, actually. I've never tried oil paint before in my life. If you do, let me know if you like it. I'm really excited to try it out. It's a bit expensive to get into oil painting, so I'm really glad that my boyfriend gifted that to me for Christmas. So now I can finally try it out. I just need to get myself into it. If you want a video about that, let me know below. But yeah, I definitely do some traditional art as well. I usually take my sketchbook a lot. I even have one with me all the time when I'm on the road or whatever, in the train, walking around, taking a walk. So just I can grab my little sketchbook. I also like to use Posca pens, acrylic pens. I also have some watercolor pens. I have even an unboxing video about some above here. I also have an unboxing video about the Artix acrylic markers, so if you want to check those out, you can find them here. So let's see about the next comment. We have here, wow, you're so good. Thank you very much. I'm an artist doing traditional. Do you have any tips for digital art? Digital is way harder for me. Oh god, yes. I think you're not alone with this. The transition from traditional art to digital art was very hard for me too, and I think a lot of artists can probably relate to this. Let us know in the comments if that is the same for you. Also, if you have some tips regarding this. But for me, first of all, it's really just getting used to a tool. That's one thing, because like you need to get to know the tool, what the buttons are and what the pens are, etc. And like also find the brush for you, I think, because I think I also started out with some stupid brushes when I started out with digital, which made it a lot harder for me. Then there is a setting called brush stroke stabilization in most of the programs. Yeah, even in Procreate and Photoshop, everywhere I think you can have a setting for that. And if the brush doesn't have that, you might be getting very wobbly lines, and that can be very difficult then. So if you want your strokes to look more controlled and smooth, you might want to play around with that setting. So I didn't know about that for a long time, so that helped me. I think some people also have a problem with like these glass surfaces. Let's say you're, for instance, painting on an iPad. I don't know what you are using. I have used graphic tablets in the past, like the ones without a screen, the ones with a screen, and I have used an iPad in the past, so I think I'm pretty experienced now. And like, for instance, with an iPad, if you have like a glass screen like that, some people just can't get along with that because it doesn't feel like paper. And what I've heard is that you can buy some of those screen protectors that have a material, a sort of structure that makes it feel more like paper. So if you know those ASMR videos on TikTok where it's like when people draw, that's usually that paper. So maybe that's also something that might help. I think what also helped me a lot was realizing that I can lower the opacity of a pen, because especially if you want to start sketching, right? It's not super opaque on traditional media. You can go over it multiple times and it gets darker then. So usually if you pick like the first brush in an art program or whatever, when you draw digitally for the first time, it might be on full opacity, not have the pen pressure, etc. And then it feels super unnatural. It might be an idea to use the simple round brush in most tools at the beginning, but set your opacity maybe to like 80% or even lower, so that it feels more like a traditional pen. And then there are pens like a monoline, they stay the same thickness. And then there are pens that fade out. So like if you do a stroke, they get thinner at the end. So that's also something you might want to consider, so that you get closer to the real feeling or what you feel more comfortable with, whatever is more controllable for you. But in the end, it really is practice. It's also finding your process, I think, because in the beginning, I really didn't know how to start. The painting process digitally can be very different compared to traditionally. I mean, traditionally, you will start with a sketch, maybe do the line art, and then sort of paint in, and then you have to take like the same color but darker to the shadows. And in a digital painting process, you can make use of layers, for instance. So you can use a multiply layer, for example, to do the shadows, and this can be a lot easier for you because you don't have to adjust every single color to the darker color. You stay with the same color and it will do the shading for you, basically. No, this doesn't mean that digital art is necessarily easier, but why work hard in areas where digital art actually has advantages for you, right? But like, there are people who don't use multiply layers and have a very traditional approach to digital art. art and like do it the same way they would do it traditionally. Some people use a dozen layers, some people only paint on one layer. So I think the difficulty with the transition from traditional art to digital art is also finding your painting process and what you're comfortable with, and also finding the possibilities of the tool. So what I definitely recommend is watching speed paints, possibly in the tool that you're also using, but not necessarily. Most art programs have the same functions more or less, but I think it's easier, especially in the beginning, if you see tutorials and speed paints of the tool you're actually using. Maybe even speed paints where artists explain what they're doing, maybe even watch some tutorials about the tool first of all. But I think those speed paints really helped me, like seeing what different sort of approaches artists have to digital art. Some don't do a sketch at all. Some do a sketch with a low opacity round brush and don't do a line art at all. Some place their line art on multiply, some don't. Some use a very sketchy textured brush for this and that, and some will use very clean brushes for that. Some will use the bucket tool to fill in the colors. Some will use the lasso tool a lot, like the selection tool. So that really helped me a lot to understand what's possible with those digital programs and what some usual painting processes could look like. And then it's trial and error actually. So I would try around a lot with different processes until I would find mine and get comfortable with it. So you might also want to check out my speed paints. Actually, I have a lot of them. I have some speed paints on Photoshop and Procreate. Yeah, so maybe check those out and you might find something helpful for your art process in the future. If you're interested though in more in-depth tutorials or something like that, let me know in the comments. And yeah, you might want to watch some tutorials maybe on layer modes to understand them. Of course, you can definitely do stunning art pieces without using any crazy layer modes, effects or whatever. But I mean, when you do digital art, those are a lot of advantages that you can use. So maybe inform yourself about what's possible in those programs, what layer modes they are, how you can use them for shading and lighting. Like for example, multiply layer, add soft light, hard light, etc. Maybe the Gaussian blur effect, something like that, chromatic aberration, that stuff you can play around with. And I definitely recommend to use the chance to flip the canvas horizontally once in a while, because after a long period of painting, you get used to what you're painting and you don't really see anymore if something's weird or proportionally off. Happens to the best of us, really. And when I was using traditional media, I would like take my drawing mid-process and stand in front of a mirror and look at it, and I would be like, okay, I gotta change that. And you can do that even more easily in art programs. Usually they have just one button where it's like flip canvas horizontally. Flip it once, look at it, assess, flip it back, go on, fix, whatever. You usually also have something like a liquify tool, which can help a lot to like readjust stuff again. And I think it's definitely good to make use of the many colors that such art programs provide. That's a big advantage that I always saw with digital art, that you have those vibrant colors you can make, etc. But I mean, that's up to everyone themselves, how your art style is, I guess. But maybe understanding the different color wheels, because when you pick the colors in digital art programs, you either have a circle with like the colors around, maybe sometimes you have a square, free sliders with like green, yellow, blue, whatever, where you can slide around. Maybe inform yourself about that stuff if you see yourself struggling with finding the right colors. But yeah, I think a lot comes with practice. Let me show you my older first bad digital art that I made and how it got progressively better. Final thing I want to say, it's totally normal that it's difficult when you are in that transition from traditional art to digital art, or if you're trying it for the first time. It was the same for me, and as far as I've heard the art community, it was the same for a lot of other people too. Let us know how it was for you and if you have tips. So we've spoken of traditional art and different art mediums, which brings us to the next question, which is, do you use a blending pencil or your finger when blending charcoal? I have to be honest, yes, I did use charcoal once, I think, really just once. So I'm really inexperienced when it comes to that. I don't even think I did a lot of research regarding that. You probably know more about it than I do. I can show you the one very bad, very early piece I made. So that's a long time ago. I also improved a lot since then, but this is like the one time I used charcoal. What annoys me a little bit with charcoal is that it's really messy. When you're done with the piece, it tends to like smear around and it's just very messy and dirty. And I know that you're supposed to like spray it with something that it stays this way and doesn't like stain everything and get lost and whatever. But I didn't have that and I just wasn't well informed, and I researched and I found out you can also use hairspray. I used hairspray. but it didn't work. So I just keep this piece of art in foil, and that's where it's gonna stay for the rest of its life. But yeah, you're asking if I use a blending pencil or my finger when blending charcoal. Back then I got gifted a little starter set of charcoal, and it also included one of those blending pencils, and I really like the blending pencil. So yeah, I definitely use the blending pencil and not really the fingers. Congrats on 500. Thank you very much. What's your favorite art medium and why? That's a super hard question. Honestly, I never really thought about that actually. I think if I had to pick, I'd say digital art. It's the one that I do the most. It's the thing that you find the most on my channel for a reason. And what I just really like about it is the vibrant colors, and that you really have a huge range of colors that you can use like in one set in one go. You don't have to buy like 30 different colors, mix them or whatever. You really have a huge range of colors. You just pick it, you use it, and they can be super vibrant. You don't have to scan it to print your work. You can do different canvas sizes. Yeah, there is some initial investment. It's like the graphic tablet, the program, you need a laptop or a PC, whatever. So I would be lying if I said it was more inexpensive. But on the other hand, with traditional media, you'd have to buy certain sets. And usually if you want some really good materials, quality materials, those can be really expensive. And you'd have, I don't know, for oil paint, for instance, you need to pay turpentine. My phone just crashed. Where were we? Yeah, my phone is 7 years old. I think I need to get a new one. So sorry if the camera quality is not the best. Where were we? Like for example, for oil paint, you need to get turpentine or whatever medium first so that you can actually use the colors. You need to buy the colors. You might need to get special brushes. You might need to buy a canvas. So that can be a hassle. Of course, I'm not saying that you don't need to pay a lot of money for digital art too, but I like that I then at least have all the colors if I already spent the money, you know. Also, one thing is like getting started, like getting the motivation to even start a piece. If I need to like set up all the acrylic paint, mix it first, get some water, get like the whole stand for the canvas, pick a canvas first, maybe even buy a canvas first, and then I have to clean it all up, etc. I kind of find that annoying sometimes, so it's harder to get me motivated to do that kind of art. It's probably gonna be the same for oil paint. Haven't tried it yet, which is why I especially like the water brush pens I got from my boyfriend. Here I have a video where I unbox them. You already have the watercolors in the brushes, so you can use watercolor without the whole setting up. Same goes for acrylic brush pens. I really like those, or just acrylic paints in general, like Posca or the Arctic ones, which I have, because I can do acrylic paint without getting the brushes, the colors, the water, etc. out first, and even without having to use a canvas or whatever. So I also have an unboxing video of those if you're interested. And I definitely love the option that you can undo. It feels like so much commitment when you do traditional art and then something goes wrong and you can't undo it, or it's really a hassle to undo it, like paint over it, whatever, remove it in whatever way. Let me know if you've also had that before. You finished a painting, drawing, whatever, but you're thinking, hey, let me still change or fix this and that, and then you do it and you regret it so much. You should have stopped at that other point, because that's when the art was good, that's where it would have been finished, but now you have to put in even more work to remove whatever you've done, and maybe it's not even removable or fixable anymore. So yeah, happened to me before. How about you? What's your favorite art medium? Let me know below. I think the art medium that I've never tried before is oil painting, as I mentioned, but also gouache. I never tried it. I love how it looks on videos, etc., but I just never got to try it. I don't have gouache colors, so I think I would like it. When I started with digital art, I had one of those Wacom graphic tablets that doesn't have a display, so basically you're drawing on a tablet but don't see what you're drawing, but it's replicating your movements to the laptop screen or whatever. And then way later, I received one of those graphic tablets with a screen. Art is an expensive hobby, unfortunately. It's not Wacom brand or whatever. It's this, an Artist 12 XP pen. Yeah, so that's the one I got with a display. I didn't even get it myself. That's what I got gifted at some point. So you're noticing whenever I have new materials, it's mostly because I got them as a present. And most of the times when people gift me something, it's usually art materials, which I'm happy about. Let's go on with the next question, which is Yeah, right. But seriously, what brush do you use? My opinion, straight up, I don't think you need fancy brushes to do good art. I know that a lot of artists are gonna try to sell them to you, and there are probably a lot of really good art brush packs out there. I'm not gonna undermine that or anything, but I really think you don't need to spend even more money in the beginning for expensive brush packs or whatever. It's not about the brushes if that's, I just think you can be good without fancy brushes. That's what I'm trying to say. The main brush I used was the standard round brush. Sometimes it's still good to have a variation of brushes. Most art programs even have a variation of brushes, so you probably already have that. I think the basic important ones I always use and need to have is like something a bit textured that I can use to sketch, or even if I want to do sketchy highlights or something of the sort, or something supposed to have texture like an HB pen or something like that. In Procreate, I really like the gloaming pen. Then usually the normal hard round brush, something like an ink brush, where it's like it has fine start and fine end of the brush. It has a strong opacity, which is good for line art, for instance, if you like that type of brush. It all depends on you and your art style and what you like. That's just what I like to use, and it differs from time to time, but I really think the basic brushes are usually the ones that are enough. I would be lying though if I said I didn't download any brushes from anywhere. I really like Louise as an artist, and I watched her from the very beginning since I started to learn art, and I really admired her art style. It's always been a huge inspiration for me also. I was looking up her page recently, and there I saw, I think it was called Louise Academy or something like that. I simply signed up for free. You just type in your email, I think, and then you have access to a basic tutorial from hers, and you even got access to one of her free brush packs. And I really like that brush pack of hers. It has one of those hard round brushes, but it has a lower opacity. You can smudge it out already with the brush itself, so I really like that. Then of course the usual round soft brush, round airbrush is really important. And I think that's already it. That's the most important ones that you need. I'm gonna blend in some pictures here of the ones that I use a lot in Procreate and Photoshop. I don't have a brush pack. I've never made my own brushes. I currently don't have any like that. Last question for today. Congrats. Thank you. Do you have a favorite piece of art from yourself? I think if it comes to canvases, I really, really like this one of the guy with the angel wings that look a bit like ink. I really like this one, but I wouldn't say it's like generally my favorite piece of art I've ever made. I think it should definitely be a digital piece, and if I had to say which one, I would say this one. Probably. It's actually the newest piece I made, and it's made in Photoshop, which I didn't use in a long time. I was using mainly Procreate for a while now. I just really like how it turned out. I like the colors, I like the subject, the eyes, the vibe it's giving. I didn't really make line art like that. I kind of used the sketch that I already had, but made a more refined sketch, put it on multiply, erase some stuff that was maybe not that good, but I didn't explicitly make line art. And I really like the vibe of that. Maybe a second one, if I can mention it, would also be this one. I actually also have it printed in my own apartment at home. I just really like the motive, the vibe it's giving, the sort of clouds that are hovering over his eyes, and like this cloudy vibe it's giving of a clouded mind. I like the colors, the background. Do you have a favorite piece of mine? Let me know in the comments. So I hope that answered most of your questions. I mean, I also did the poll, and a lot of you wanted to hear about my art and my process. We already covered that a lot in the video. If there are any more specific questions about my art and my process, let me know. I could talk more about my general art process, but I think that would actually be a whole video on its own. If you want to see what my general process when painting is, then let me know in the comments. I could do an extra video about that. You can already see some of it if you're interested in my former speed paints, especially like in the last one, I think, there I explained a lot what I was actually doing. So yeah, maybe check that out if you're interested in that. And you also wanted some personal fun facts, so you probably wanted to get to know me a little bit more. Yeah, fun fact number one, I love cats. I have 2 cats. Also, fun fact number 2, I like gaming. I mainly play Overwatch. Feel free to judge me. Fun fact number 3, I live in Germany. I speak German. Hi Leute, ich spreche Deutsch. Wie geht's? Let me know below if you're also a fellow German. Fun fact number 4, I speak a lot of languages. Like, I speak German, I speak English, I speak some Spanish, some French, a little bit of Russian, some Italian. I try to teach myself Japanese, but that's No, I'm not gonna list that. And I also learned some Chinese back then, but that's also a long time ago. I didn't practice it. Maybe one more fun fact, I also like making music. I play the piano. I tried playing the violin and the viola in the past too, but I just also like the piano more. That's the one I've always played the most, which is what you can also see in the back. Yeah, that's the one. I especially like to improvise on the piano, so I like writing my own songs or just coming up with something on the spot when I play instead of just playing from music sheet. And I also write some songs occasionally. I also love corgis because their little bums wiggle when they walk and they sploot. And I have a pair of corgi socks. That's me. If you have any more questions, maybe you want to know more about me, maybe I didn't fully answer something, just let me know in the comments. At some point, we're probably gonna do a Q&A again. I had fun, I hope you had too, and that's me. If you liked today's video, please leave a like, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell to get notified, etc. I really appreciate it, it motivates me, and thank you very much. Bye bye!